Hi everybody, welcome to this week's Middle East update. It's the week of September 13th, and a lot going on in Israel and the Middle East. Let's just jump right into it. You know, I usually kind of begin with my musings, and the elections are going to come up on the 17th of September, so right now it's hard to figure out anything that's going on. It's like God really only knows what promises will be made, what deals have been backroom deals. Who knows what Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran, Syria, Jordan, who knows what they're up to, what their influences will be on the elections. We'll get to one in particular with Hamas here in a second, but the whole Iranian nuclear deal, the two-state solution, Trump's ultimate deal. Wow, that is a mouthful. What I find very interesting, and I was just talking to a friend that flew in today from Israel, is that the concept of the government in Israel is that it's not one party. You need to form a coalition government, and sometimes some of the smaller parties end up being the kingmakers because they're the ones that put you over that threshold. And it will be interesting to see if some of the smaller parties, one in particular, a right wing, but part of their platform is the plans to build a third temple. Interesting. Will Netanyahu use extreme right-wing position to form his government? We're going to have to wait and see. Again, it's coming up, and as I mentioned before, it's a mess right now trying to figure out anything. So let's just go over what we do know. In our news bites, we know that there's new threats emerging from Gaza. We know that there's now what are called bomb-dropping drones. And I go back and forth with information. Some say that Israel has the technology to deal with this, and others say no one knows how to deal with this. Again, let me encourage you to go to our website to get the PDF PowerPoint, because I try to keep this at 10 minutes, and a lot of times there's much more information that I have to leave behind, but it's all on the PDF PowerPoint. Lieberman, again, some see him, the Israel is my home party, as being the kingmaker. He's sent out kind of a message that basically says that messianic religious extremists will emerge after the elections. This idea of what I said about smaller parties getting great influence unless there's a large voter turnout in places like Tel Aviv. Bibi, by the way, who's currently behind in the polls, is making promises now to apply Israeli sovereignty to the West Bank settlement, starting with the Jordan Valley. Again, when and if reelected. And then, as you probably have heard, Trump has fired foreign policy hawk John Bolton, citing some strong disagreements, primarily with the dealing with both North Korea as well as Iran. And I know it sends some ripples through Israel because Bolton's stance with Iran is one that they're very comfortable with, and this whole Trump wanting to be open to negotiating with Israel is with Iran is causing some concern in Israel. Breaking news. Keeping in mind it's the elections and all of that, but Netanyahu has today made the statement that war now is inevitable with Hamas. And then he kind of goes on to say, we have no choice but to enter into a campaign, war against Gaza. But then he goes on, as only Bibi can, to say, Israeli citizens know perfectly well that I act responsibly and with discretion. I will open the campaign at the most appropriate moment. I will determine it. I'm not going to have a knee-jerk reaction. Your tweets are needling. When you're in charge, you have the decision. But right now, I'm in charge, and I won't start a second before conditions are optimal. But I find no option other than, and so then we just sort of have to fill in the blanks and see whether this operation will take place before the 17th or in the midst of all of that. We're going to have to just wait and see. Lieberman seems to have leaked some information from the Trump plan. I think it's noteworthy. The report notes that Lieberman revealed the details shortly before resigning from his post, but essentially this is what we're hearing. Whether they're rumors or whether it's truth, we'll have to wait and see. But Lieberman reports that the deal, the ultimate peace plan, will give the Palestinians control over Area A, as well as smaller sections of B and even C. The accord does not involve the evacuation of any Jewish presence in Judea or Samaria. The report also states that the deal will ensure that Israel maintains full authority over all border crossings. The deal also states that Israel will control most of Jerusalem and that the IDF will maintain its presence in the Jordan Valley. And so once this was sort of leaked and came out, we know that there was an assassination attempt on Netanyahu down in Ashdod as he was declaring sovereignty, that Israel will have sovereignty over the Jordan Valley. Things are just starting to heat up. The U.S. has now joined in with the threat to Hezbollah or Lebanon. On last Wednesday, Pompeo basically told Lebanon, hey, we know you've got another plant there for precision rockets and missiles that Hezbollah and Iran is putting together. If you don't dismantle it, we will. And so again, it's not just Israel, but the U.S. has said we will step in as well. I think pretty noteworthy. There's an article here on rockets that were launched from Syria, and they didn't quite make it into Israel. They landed on the Syrian side, but they were launched with the intent of hitting Israel. And again, the IDF is holding Syria regime responsible for every action that takes place, and they did retaliate. That we hardly ever get all of the informations about the retaliations, but we do know that there was an attempt and there was a retaliation. I mentioned the assassination attempt on Netanyahu. You can read that article. A couple others before our time's up. I been to Israel many times. Encourage you to always go check out our website, holygroundexplorations.com. It changes your life. But one of the things that we always go to the city of David, and on our way to the city of David, you go through sort of the archaeological digs that are going on the southern side of the Temple Mount. And you can see in this article that a 2,600-year-old seal or bulla has been discovered with the name of one of the sons of David on it. You can see the picture and the PDF and all that, but once again, undeniable proof of the existence of Israel in Jerusalem, as if we really need that. But again, the craziness of the world, the Palestinians making the claim that Israel really has no right because there's no evidence of their ever being there. How ridiculous is that? Finally, we're out of time, but a Facebook comment that I saw that I felt like was worth reading. And so I'll end with this. A Facebook comment basically says, I can't figure out for the life of me if we know where Hezbollah has their missile programs and we continue to let it exist, And while we play nice with the rules of war and the political opinions of the West and others, as they are arming for war, and every missile Hezbollah has will be used against our civilian population, you have to ask yourself, how many missiles is Hezbollah allowed to have before it becomes too many? If our intelligence tells us of tunnels in the south and the north, why do we let them continue? If we know where their missile factories are, why do we have to wait until they attack and injure someone before we act? How many Jews need to be killed before we get angry? How many parents will lose a child before the line in the sand is actually passed? This is what's going on in the Middle East today. How long does Israel have to wait before they act? The one thing that we do know, and I know I said I'd end with that, but I'll end with this, is that God is in control. And the God of Israel holds Israel in the palm of his hands, and he's got the plan in mind and how it will all unfold. And as believers, I pray that we would be watchmen on the wall, understanding the times in which we're living, standing and supporting with Israel, and praying that their eyes would be open, that they would receive Yeshua as their Messiah. Remember, I'll bless those that bless thee, I'll curse those that curse thee. God bless you all. Shalom.